Yes, Nightdive is back. This time with a remaster of Outlaws plus handful of missions. This is LucasArts' mid-90s take on the spaghetti western genre. They took the Dark Forces technology and they built a brand new shooter out of it, and we're going to talk about it here today. But this isn't the only thing that's been remastered. Also, I have Audi Sorlie here.
Fully remastered.
Fully remastered, looking great. And both of us are here to talk about it, and for good reason. So we've talked about Dark Forces before here on DF, and you've also played Outlaws in its original form, as have I.
You know, this is kind of like a redemption story for this game for me because, well, back in the day, this was actually one of the games that disappointed me the most. And the reason why was because Dark Forces was one of my favorite games, my favorite FPS back then. I saw this with my friend. He was a PC guy, just like you. And I saw this, and I was like, this is not the direction I wanted. I wanted more Dark Forces, more Star Wars. So this really disappointed me, and I did not have any interest in it. And then we played it, and I've had mixed feelings on it. But there was a lot of things I enjoyed about it when I finally did play it. And then I learned Jedi Knight existed shortly thereafter, so I completely forgot about it. But now we have the remaster.
It is
and it's
reborn.
been interesting. It is reborn.
So fundamentally, this is sort of LucasArts' borderline forgotten shooter.
Yep.
It's the one you don't hear them talk about very often. And it's kind of like lost in the limelight of the Star Wars games of the era, but it is actually a very interesting game. And Nightdive's version of it is, of course, what you might hope. So let's start right from the beginning here, main menu. As you would expect from a Nightdive release, you have plenty of different options to adjust. You can toggle both the remastered or original visuals. It supports high refresh rate, of course, and various other improvements as well, which we'll see during the gameplay segment here. The only downside is that it doesn't offer any sort of CRT filter this time, and I think it's because they view that as more of a TV-related feature, but it also applies, I think, to a VGA computer monitor, so it would have been nice to see.
Helped it.
Because the game, so we're playing it here at 4K, native 4K. It's a little bit high res for some of the graphics, I think. You see the tiling of the textures in the distance, but by and large, it's pretty good, right? As you actually open up the game, you know, one of the main separating features for Outlaws is, in fact, its story, right?
Yeah, it's a very strong narrative game, and like the cutscenes, I remember, were very impressive back then, but kind of noisy. But
Right.
these seem to be fully uncompressed. I don't know if these are video files or like some sort of. Do you remember this ran on like the Insane engine or something?
Yeah, this was actually a video compression system that was developed by Vincent Lee over at LucasArts. And it was specifically the thing that allowed them to do full screen video back on the PC when PCs weren't great at doing video. But of course, as mid-90s video compression, they're able to do something a lot better now in this remastered version. So cutscenes are far sharper than they were in the original. It's really good stuff. So I think they did a phenomenal job there. And in fact, the storytelling is one of the best things about the game, because between every single mission, you actually get story updates. They actually have scenes generated. You're hunting people down, you're on a mission to get back your daughter, and it's told really well. It's very engaging. I mean, LucasArts was known for their graphic adventures, and they apply that sort of storytelling here, which is a huge upgrade over Dark Forces, which had some cutscenes, but nothing as elaborate as this.
Well, you also have the voice cast, because you have like John Delancey. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Yep, Q from Star Trek.
Exactly.
You have Bob Mole, isn't it? Or Robert Mole, isn't it? From Night Court. Cam Clark shows up because he's in everything.
Nice.
So I really enjoyed that back in the day, just like the voice performances, and that's definitely one of the best aspects still of the game.
The game itself, then, this is interesting. So as I noted earlier, this is based on an evolution of the technology that was created for Dark Forces.
Jedi engine?
Yes, and the same engine was also used, or the editor was used initially in prototyping out Shadows of the Empire for N64. So, and you can really feel it at points here. Like, there's this large open desert area with these massive chasms and like overarching sort of like structures. Very, very boxy.
Yep.
but it's very Shadows of the
It looks very
Empire,
much like it. We were noting that when we were playing
which
it.
is quite funny.
Yeah.
Um, but the engine over Dark Forces, Dark Forces could do some of the stuff already, but now you actually have more in the way of things like slopes,
Mm.
which was not something that I believe Dark Forces did, if I recall. More obvious rooms above rooms where you actually see down through the floor,
Yeah.
which was something not common in these sector-based engines. And there's a bunch of other tricks where they tried to do things that were sort of story-driven, and they made it work in the engine. Which feels it's really interesting because by the time this released, we were already in the age of full 3D polygon graphics,
Right.
but they were still trying to push out the technology with this engine.
Where was this? Where was Quake at this point?
So that's the thing, right? Quake had released nearly a year earlier. So this was also the year that I think they would do their own Jedi Knight game,
Mm.
which was the sequel to Dark Forces.
Yeah.
So like polygon graphics were already all over the place. But of course, Build Engine was still around, Shadow Warrior came later, Monolith did Blood, and these were very well regarded. So I think in retrospect it's very cool that they continued with this style. But thankfully, with this new version, you can actually toggle the new and the old graphics in real time,
Right.
which shows us some of the changes they made. I guess the biggest thing is that they redid all of the textures and the sprites.
Yeah. The sprites especially, because when you said we were gonna play this, I remember this as a pre-rendered game,
Right,
and that's kind of the case still. But when you actually have the high resolution textures on here, you see that they were all hand-drawn sprites, hand-drawn characters, and so they seem to have either had like the original drawings or redrawn them. I'm not sure. But when you turn on the new graphics here, you can see that like there's so much detail and like expression to them. Whereas if you put the old graphics on, they pretty much look like just like digital pre-renders.
right. And I think just, the nature of being lower resolution textures for sprites
Yeah.
meant that they couldn't necessarily capture that detail in the engine, so they went for simpler shapes, right?
Yeah.
Where now you can run it at a much higher resolution, and it really shows in the sprite work, both in the characters and also the weapons.
Yeah.
Every weapon has been re-rendered, and they're very, very sharp looking. Not to mention the HUD as well. Like they redrew the HUD, everything, the interface,
Absolutely everything is
everything's been redrawn. The textures as well. I think they've done a good job at sort of like keeping the vibe of the original game,
right.
but enhancing the detail without going too far. Like if you still walk up to the textures, you'll see like, oh yeah, they're not that sharp,
Right.
but they're sharp enough.
They're stylistic to the game. Though
Right.
There are some issues we'll get into, but they ruined the horse.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one caveat. Is like, I don't love the new horse sprite versus the old one. It's very
It
weird.
looks
looking.
like it's from Town with No Name.
And you always start right next to your horse. Well, in most maps, so yeah, I don't love the horse.
Yeah, not the best first impression of each stage, but you can switch back and you can see here that the old style horse. I'm not sure what they went for here. It doesn't seem to really mesh with what they're doing in general, so
No, it doesn't.
maybe they can patch a better horse in.
So but aside from that, though, it is interesting. I do appreciate that when you switch to original graphics, you actually get point sample textures, so
Yep.
pixelation. Whereas when you're in the enhanced mode, everything is filtered,
Yeah.
as it should be. Interpolation on the textures.
Yeah.
There's also an enhanced renderer option. And enhanced rendering is interesting because it actually adds some new visual features that didn't previously exist. The big one being the water.
Yeah.
So all the water in the original is just like a flat sort of like texture with some sort of animation in it,
Yeah.
which is very common for the time. With the enhanced renderer, and some might say this goes too far, they apply more of a pixel shader style effect to it. So you can actually see through it and it distorts what's below the water.
Yes.
But I still think it's cartoony enough that it doesn't look that out of place to my eye.
No, I think it has more of an impact on like just the atmosphere of the game, more so than just like I don't know. This is like the most night divey thing I can think of. Is like we made better water.
Oh yeah, of course they wanted to do that. So that's a big interesting thing as well. So the key, I think, is that it is very faithful to the original presentation.
Yeah.
And the enhancements are largely very well done. I'm very satisfied with all of that. It just feels very polished. It's super fluid. It runs great. We only had access to the PC version, I
Yep.
should note, but it should be available for consoles as well. I don't believe that this had the 72 hertz issue of Dark Forces because this was a Windows 95 game,
Right.
whereas Dark Forces was DOS and it used DOS mode X.
Mm.
And I think this actually ran in 640 by 480 on the PC originally, which is cool. So all of that's good, but there's the game side.
There's the gameplay.
I fundamentally like the game, but
Same.
I think there are some pretty serious flaws with it. And it's something that, so I've never actually finished this. I own the game in the original version, but I never finished it. And every time I play it again, I'm reminded why. And right?
Yeah.
It's level design, and specifically their use of MacGuffins to advance the level, primarily in the form of keys, but sometimes things like gears and other stuff,
Yeah. Or crowbars.
or the crowbar.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
No, I mean, it is. So everything is laid out kind of sensible. Like, I think you said that they had like an actual architecture.
Yeah,
So,
so there was an interview that they did recently with one of the lead level designers, and I believe he studied actual like architecture and had
which
experience
makes
with CAD
sense.
design,
Yeah.
and you feel it.
You can definitely feel it because it's a little bit ahead of its time in the sense that like everything is laid out in a logical manner in real life, but because the game is from a certain era of gaming, nothing is populated, nothing is kind of in the gameplay sense, in a game mechanical sense, not laid out in a way that like telegraphs much where an item is located, where a key is located. So you have these huge sprawling empty areas where you just have to run around and hope that you detect the key item because
And
it's
so,
also blends in with the environment.
so that's the big problem, and I think the second stage is very very
The
guilty of this,
town.
right? So I applaud them. They try to recreate this like idea of like a western town, right?
Yeah,
You go
yeah,
in
yeah.
here, there's a lot of buildings, and what's cool is that you can actually go in all of the buildings.
Yes.
This is post like Duke Nukem 3D era, by the way. So like the idea of like being able to enter all these buildings and interact with things,
Yeah.
that is novel, and it's cool that the town itself is so large. But I found that like locating the keys that you need to be very tedious because they're often like in places where they're slightly out of the way, but because the key sprite itself is so similarly colored to the rest of the game world and kind of small, it's not immediately like visible like say a Doom card key.
No.
And I get why you don't necessarily get glowing, but I feel like maybe floating or like some sort of indicator that hey, the key is here, because like the key in the kitchen, for instance, which I'd forgotten about, it's like up on top of like quote unquote refrigerator, if I recall. I don't remember what it
It's
was,
like
but
on a big stove or something.
or a stove.
Yeah.
Or, there was basically like something where it's sitting up high where when you're at eye level you don't see it, and even when you go up top it takes a second to register that you're looking at a key.
I mean, we're two grown men in theory, and we still, both of us could not see this thing. We were running around for like half an hour.
Yeah, and that sucks, frankly. And the game has a lot of this. Like, there's the waterway level, which is something LucasArts love. They did it in the sewers in Dark
The
Forces and
sawmill. Yeah.
the sawmill. So you're running around,
Just-
and you're like, wait, I have to collect gears to then like put them into this contraption, which conceptually okay. I mean, Tomb Raider also did this,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Beforehand, but like the way it all works with this like the water flow and the need to like sort of like puzzle your way around,
Yeah.
it gets very irritating.
The game just doesn't telegraph very well, like where you need to go and how to get there.
So that's the big complaint with it.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I think it's pretty cool. The shooting's fun. I like how for instance, like you unload a rifle into enemies, right?
Yep.
You actually reload each individual bullet. Tap
Yeah, we have
R
to
on the
manually
keyboard.
do it. Yeah, yeah.
I think that's really cool, and it feels neat. Like, you know, tap 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 tap, sticking those bullets in and then taking out dudes. I really like the way that the levels sort of like try to simulate like a real world journey. Like, you know, you start in the small town and then you go to a bigger town,
Yeah.
but then you chase the guy that you're after on horseback and end up on a train. And
Yep.
they did a moving train level with this engine, or sort of like the infinitely scrolling terrain. It's really cool, and it actually does feel like legitimately like you're, an early example of like a proper moving stage,
Yeah, yeah,
which is something that would become more popular, but at the time very, very novel. And then after that you're like in this valley, like outdoors, making your way through a canyon, and then it's like just this like mix of different areas. There's a part where you're captured, tossed in prison, you escape with your fists, and it's all driven by cutscenes that are
yeah,
very engaging.
yeah,
And I think that specifically is something that makes this game feel very unique for the time, because it does have the, what can I say, the Doom style of design. You're usually puzzling through levels to figure out how to open up doors and continue, but they try to do a lot more thematically
yeah.
and gameplay wise.
They drive it with narrative rather than just like the action itself,
Right.
which also is helped by probably the best part of the game is the music.
Oh, geez. Yes. The soundtrack from Clint Bajakian.
Bahakian, yeah,
Bahakian, I'm bad with his name. I apologize. His music, though, phenomenal. Very well known composer. And for this one, it's just like, I don't necessarily love this genre of music that it represents, but the quality in this one and the tunes and
yeah.
just the power of it, it's really good.
One of LucasArts' best, I would say. Kind of, and like I said at the beginning, this is very much a forgotten game, and that
Right.
soundtrack is definitely forgotten.
And that's a key, is that in the original version it actually uses CD Red Book audio,
Mhm.
which was not the case with Dark Forces, which was a
No,
MIDI based game. They would also use Red Book for Jedi Knight 2, of
yeah,
course, but it meant that they weren't limited by the technology. They were just able to create this like very powerful soundtrack,
right.
and it pairs with the action so well, and drives it forward. So between that, the cutscenes, and some really interesting and creative levels, I still think it's very much worth revisiting. But I do think everyone should be cautious about this whole, just some of the confusing level designs, and like go into it expecting that, and I think you'll have a better time than if you don't, right?
Yeah, I hate the term not having not aged well. I don't think it applies to most games the way you say it, but this I think does have some elements that wasn't necessarily very well aged when it came out either. Just doesn't really fit all together as a great game, but there's a good game here.
But yeah, so overall, I mean, I feel like most of the issues with this are just down to the design of the game, but I still think it's worth experiencing.
Yeah, like
Uh,
anything Nightdive, I think they do some of the best work in the industry to bring back old titles.
yeah, I don't think you could have done this better. And I think it's very important in good work to bring back games that maybe weren't like the most popular or the best games. But what they've done is they've taken this original and made it very, very playable on modern systems in a way that gives you the, just basically the best possible experience you could ask for,
Mhm.
including the option to enjoy it with the original graphics if you prefer. So it's historically a very interesting, important game from a time when LucasArts was arguably one of the best developers in the entire world.
Yeah, and I mean, just speaking to that, there's also like a big vault where you can look into like various documentation
Oh
of the
yeah,
game, and like you can hear like commentaries on the music. So I mean, they've done the best job you possibly could do for this game.
agreed, 100%. But that's going to do it from us for now, so I can put you back in the closet.
Yeah, all right, okay, I'll go.
So wonderful. So thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.